Back on the Titan station, the aftermath of the mission weighed heavily on the crew. The Vanguard had returned successfully, but the command scrutiny was immediate. Every log, every action, and every deviation from orders was under review. Lieutenant Arik Valen and Dr. Leora Celine felt the tension as they moved through the corridors, their steps measured and careful. "Lieutenant," Leora whispered as they entered the lab, "the command is reviewing the mission logs. They might question our actions." Arik's jaw tightened. "Let them. We did what was necessary. The mission succeeded because we worked together. That's all that matters." Her eyes met his, full of unspoken emotion. For weeks they had endured danger, uncertainty, and the pull of something forbidden. And now, with scrutiny closing in, the tension between them was almost unbearable. Hours later, they were summoned to the command council. The chamber was formal, cold, and filled with officers whose expressions betrayed suspicion. Arik and Leora stood side by side, the weight of their success and their secret pressing on them. "Lieutenant Valen," the commanding officer began, "your handling of the Aurelian Project mission has raised questions. Some decisions were irregular." Arik held his head high. "Yes, sir. Certain actions were necessary to ensure the success of the mission and the safety of all crew members." The officer's gaze shifted to Leora. "Dr. Celine, your reports indicate collaboration that exceeded standard protocol. How do you respond?" Leora's voice was steady, professional. "We acted as a team following the needs of the mission. Every choice was calculated and essential." The tension in the room was palpable, but both Arik and Leora remained composed. They had survived danger together. They could survive scrutiny. After the council dismissed them, Arik and Leora found themselves alone in the observation deck. The stars stretched infinitely, serene and constant. The quiet hum of the station was a comfort, but the unspoken words between them pressed heavily. "Arik," Leora's voice trembled slightly, betraying the restraint she had maintained for weeks. We can't ignore this. The way we feel? It's real. And yet," he stepped closer, closing the small distance between them. "I know," he said softly. "I've tried to ignore it, tried to follow the rules, but I can't, not anymore." Her eyes searched his, vulnerable and honest. "The command?" "They would never allow it. We could lose everything." Arik took her hands in his, holding them gently. "I don't care. Not anymore. I won't risk my life for you only to hide my heart. I won't let orders dictate what I feel." The words hung in the air, heavy and true. Leora's breath quickened, and she felt the magnetic pull between them, the same pull that had guided them through the alien tower, through life-threatening danger and through moments of silent understanding. She began, then faltered, overwhelmed by the intensity of their connection. Arik closed the final distance. His forehead rested against hers, his voice a soft murmur. "One moment, Leora, just one." Her eyes fluttered closed as he leaned in. The kiss was tentative at first, a gentle brush of lips that carried weeks of tension, fear, and longing. It was brief, yet it ignited something deep within both of them, a recognition that the bond they shared could no longer be denied. Pulling back slightly, Arik rested his forehead against hers, breathing heavily. "I don't care about the rules. I care about you." Leora's hand stayed on his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "And I care about you," she whispered. "I never imagined. I never allowed myself to feel this way. But I do." The kiss had changed everything. It was not just desire, it was trust, courage, and defiance all wrapped together. For the first time they acknowledged that their connection could not be hidden, even if the consequences were severe. Suddenly the station's intercom crackled. "Lieutenant Valen, Dr. Celine, report to Central Command immediately." Arik and Leora exchanged a glance. The moment was fleeting, fragile, and now threatened. But instead of fear, they felt a surge of resolve. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Walking toward the elevator side by side, Arik's hand brushed Leora's once more. She didn't pull away. The simple touch carried more meaning than words ever could. It was a promise, a silent declaration that no rule, no command, no star could separate them. In the command chamber, the atmosphere was tense. Officers watched as Arik and Leora entered. Whispers rippled through the room, and the commanding officer's eyes narrowed. "Lieutenant Valen, Dr. Celine," he began, voice sharp. "Your logs show unprecedented cooperation. Certain actions appear personal. Do you wish to explain?" Arik took a deep breath. He could have lied, could have claimed professional necessity, but he chose truth. Sir, we worked together as equals, combining skills to ensure the success of the mission. The mission would not have succeeded otherwise. Leora stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. Every decision, every action was necessary. We did what we had to do. Our focus was on the mission, not personal feelings. The commanding officer studied them, suspicion etched on his face. Then unexpectedly he sighed. Your results are undeniable. The mission succeeded despite the irregularities. I will not ignore that, but understand this: any further deviation from protocol will have consequences. Arik and Leora nodded, relief mixing with lingering tension. They had survived scrutiny, but the rules still loomed over them. Yet the kiss, the moment they had shared, remained theirs, an unspoken truth that no order could erase. Later, back on the observation deck, they stood silently, watching the distant stars. The station seemed quieter, almost at peace, as if acknowledging the bond between them. Arik reached for Leora's hand, holding it gently. We'll face whatever comes next, he said. Together. Leora's eyes glistened. Yes, together. For the first time since the mission began, they allowed themselves a moment of peace. The danger, the rules, and the unknown had brought them closer than ever. And in that quiet, shared space, they understood something fundamental. Love, trust, and courage were stronger than any command, stronger than any star. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, full of mysteries and challenges. But for Arik and Leora, the greatest adventure was not the signal, not the alien world, and not the dangers they faced. It was each other. And as the stars shone brightly, they shared a quiet smile, a promise unspoken but understood, that no matter what the future held, they would face it side by side, hearts aligned, and courage unwavering. The air on Titan Station was tense, thick with anticipation. Every officer and scientist seemed to move with careful precision, aware that the command was watching. Lieutenant Arik Valen and Dr. Leora Celine walked through the corridors side by side, their hands brushing lightly, a subtle reminder of the bond they had shared and the risk that came with it. They were summoned to the central command chamber for a final review. The room was formal, austere, and filled with officers whose expressions carried suspicion, curiosity, and judgment. Arik and Leora exchanged a brief glance, drawing courage from each other. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. Lieutenant Valen, Dr. Celine, the commanding officer began, voice calm but sharp. Your recent mission, while successful, has raised several concerns. Protocol was breached. Certain actions, both in the field and during ship operations, appear personal rather than professional. You understand the gravity of the situation? Arik stepped forward, standing tall. Yes, sir. I understand. But we acted with the mission's success as our priority. Every decision was necessary to protect the crew, complete the mission, and ensure the safety of the station. Leora followed, her tone steady. We worked as a team, combining skills and judgment. Yes, there were risks, but all were calculated. The success of the mission demonstrates the effectiveness of our cooperation. The commanding officer's eyes softened slightly, though the weight of authority remained. Your results are undeniable. The mission succeeded where others may have failed. However, the command's rules exist to prevent personal interference with operations. Your actions, while courageous, cannot be ignored. Arik felt his heart tighten. He had expected severe punishment, perhaps even dismissal. Yet there was a faint acknowledgement of their bravery, a recognition of what they had accomplished. The officer paused, then continued. Given the extraordinary circumstances, your performance, and your courage in the face of danger, the command will allow you to continue your duties together. There will be closer supervision, and any future deviations from protocol will result in strict consequences. Do you understand? Both Arik and Leora nodded, relief washing over them. They had survived the scrutiny and their bond remained intact. But the real victory was more than mission success. It was the validation of courage, trust, and humanity in the face of rigid rules. After the review, they stepped out onto the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before them, constant and eternal. Arik reached for Leora's hand, holding it gently. She didn't pull away. Instead, she laced her fingers with his. We did it, she whispered, a quiet smile on her lips. We survived the command, the mission, and everything. Arik looked at her, eyes soft but filled with conviction. Not just survived. We proved something. That courage, loyalty, and trust are stronger than rules. That humanity, our humanity, can shine brighter than any command or protocol. Leora leaned her head against his shoulder, feeling the warmth and steadiness of his presence. The alien tower hummed with an energy that seemed alive, almost aware of their presence. Its walls shimmered with faint light, reacting to every movement Arik Valen and Dr. Leora Celine made. The orb at the center pulsed rhythmically, sending waves of warmth and subtle vibrations through the chamber. Arik's training kept him alert. Every step, every glance at the readings was precise. Yet he could not deny the way his heart raced when Leora leaned close to adjust the sensors. The faint scent of her hair, the way her hand brushed against his arm, each moment felt like a spark he could not control. "Lieutenant," Leora whispered, her eyes wide. "This energy, it's responding to us, to our movements, our presence." Arik frowned. "Presence, you mean it reacts to proximity?" "Yes," she replied, glancing at him. "I've never seen anything like it. It's almost as if it recognizes us, acknowledges us." They moved closer to the orb, careful not to touch it directly. The chamber's energy pulsed stronger, a subtle vibration under their boots. Arik felt a surge of protectiveness. He positioned himself slightly between Leora and the orb, instinctively shielding her. "You need to be careful," he said quietly. "We don't know what could happen if it reacts too strongly." Leora nodded, but her eyes lingered on his. There was trust there, yes, but also something deeper. Curiosity, admiration, and perhaps a spark of longing. Arik felt it too, an undeniable pull he could not suppress no matter how hard he tried. As they studied the orb, their hands moved in tandem over the controls. At one point, their fingers brushed while adjusting the same sensor. The light from the orb flared for a brief second, bathing them both in a warm glow. Arik's breath caught. It reacted to us," he said. "Our touch." Leora's lips parted slightly, eyes fixed on him. "It's incredible, but dangerous. We must stay focused." He nodded, but the command's orders, the strict prohibition against personal contact, felt heavier than ever. Every glance, every accidental brush of skin carried consequences. And yet in that chamber, surrounded by the alien light, all rules felt distant, almost irrelevant. Suddenly, the orb's glow intensified, and a series of symbols appeared in midair. Holographic patterns floated between them, shifting and changing as if alive. Leora's eyes widened with excitement. "It's communicating," she whispered. "Not with words, but with emotion. It senses us." Arik took a cautious step closer. "Emotion? Are you saying it recognizes how we feel?" Leora nodded, her fingers trembling slightly as she reached toward the symbols. I think it does. This is beyond science as we know it." Arik felt the weight of her hand near his. The urge to take it, to hold it, was almost irresistible. Yet he hesitated, remembering the command's orders and the consequences of crossing that line. Still, his eyes met hers, and in that shared gaze words were unnecessary. They understood each other completely. The orb pulsed again, brighter this time. Energy swirled around them, warm and inviting. Leora's hand hovered near Arik's, and for a fleeting moment, he imagined what it would be like to bridge the distance, to reach out and let the connection that simmered between them finally ignite. "Lieutenant," Leora's voice was soft, almost a whisper. I don't know what's happening, but I feel it too." Arik's chest tightened. Every rule, every order, every command warning he had ever been given clashed with the undeniable truth of his feelings. He wanted to take her hand, to reassure her, to let her know that whatever this energy was, whatever danger lay ahead, he would protect her. Before he could act, the chamber shook violently. Sparks flew from the controls, and a low hum resonated through the floor. The orb's energy became chaotic, almost unstable. "Back!" Arik shouted, grabbing Leora's arm and pulling her a step away. The orb's glow surged, bathing them in blinding light. The energy seemed to react to their fear, their movement, and their closeness. They both stumbled slightly, their shoulders touching. In that brief contact, the energy pulsed stronger than ever. Arik felt a warmth spread through him, a mixture of exhilaration and something deeper, something dangerous if not controlled. "We need to stabilize it," Leora yelled, shaking off the shock. Her hands flew over the controls, calculations and adjustments coming instinctively. Arik moved beside her, mirroring her movements. Together they worked as a single unit, their minds and hands perfectly synchronized. The orb's light gradually steadied, returning to a gentle, rhythmic pulse. When the danger passed, they stood panting side by side, hearts racing, not just from the energy but from the unspoken tension between them. The brush of shoulders, the shared adrenaline, the way their eyes met, all of it lingered in the air like a charged current. Leora glanced at him, her lips slightly parted. "Lieutenant, thank you. I couldn't have done it without you." "You did just as much," he replied, voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside him. "We worked together, as a team." She nodded, though her gaze lingered on his. "Yes, a team." The single word carried weight, a mixture of respect, admiration, and something more. They turned to leave the chamber, but Auric found his steps slowing. He wanted to say something, to reach out, to cross the forbidden line, yet he hesitated, knowing the consequences. The command's rules were clear. Fraternization was strictly forbidden. Any breach could mean the end of his career, or worse, but the pull toward her was too strong. Every glance, every shared moment, every brush of skin made it harder to resist. He felt something he had never felt before, a desire that was not just physical, but emotional, intellectual, and human. Outside the tower, the alien landscape stretched before them, quiet and serene compared to the chaos inside. Auric and Leora walked together, their shoulders occasionally brushing. Neither spoke, yet the silence was filled with unspoken understanding. "Lieutenant," Leora said softly, breaking the quiet, "do you ever feel like some things are meant to happen even if the rules forbid them?" Auric's heart skipped a beat. He looked at her, the starlight reflecting in her eyes. "Yes," he said quietly, I do." Her gaze lingered on him, searching, questioning. For a moment, the world seemed to shrink to just the two of them, the vast alien world around them fading into insignificance. And in that moment, Auric knew that their bond had changed. It was no longer just mission or duty. It was something deeper, something that would challenge every rule he had ever followed. Yet as they prepared to return to the ship, both knew the reality awaiting them. The command would not forgive indiscretions. The rules were absolute. And still the unspoken tension remained, electric and undeniable, a promise of what could be if they dared. As they boarded the Vanguard, Auric stole a glance at Leora. Her eyes met his, and for a brief heartbeat everything else ceased to exist. The signal, the mission, the danger, they all faded into the background. All that mattered was the silent understanding between them, a connection forbidden, dangerous and yet irresistible, and somewhere deep inside, Auric knew that the greatest challenge of the mission might not be the alien world, but the desire growing between them, a desire that could defy even the stars themselves. The Vanguard cruised through the orbit of the alien planet, its sensors scanning the terrain below. Lieutenant Auric Valen and Dr. Leora Celine stood at the observation deck, studying the data streaming across the holographic displays. The alien tower they had explored earlier sent a steady rhythmic pulse, but now, the readings hinted at instability. "Something's not right," Leora said, her voice tense. "The energy patterns are fluctuating again. It's stronger than before." Auric leaned closer, scanning the readings. Could it be another signal source? Or a defensive system? Before Leora could answer, the ship's alarms blared. Red lights bathed the room and a deep warning siren shook the hull. "External threat detected," the ship's AI announced. "Rival faction vessels approaching fast. Prepare for immediate engagement." Auric's jaw tightened. "We're not alone," he muttered. He looked at Leora, seeing the mixture of fear and determination in her eyes. "Stay close. We'll handle this." The Vanguard shook as energy blast hit the hull. Crew members scrambled to stations and the command consoles lit up with warning symbols. Auric moved quickly, issuing orders while keeping one eye on Leora. "Lieutenant, the aft lab is unstable," Leora shouted over the alarm. "The alien energy readings are spiking. If it reaches critical levels, the lab could explode." Auric didn't hesitate. "I'm going in. Stay here and guide me through the system. I'll get you if it gets dangerous." "No," Leora yelled, her voice filled with concern. "You can't go alone." Auric's eyes met hers. "I won't let anything happen to you. I can't risk it." He sprinted down the narrow corridors, the hull groaning under fire. Sparks rained from damaged panels and the ship rocked violently. When he reached the lab, the alien equipment emitted a blinding glow. energy pulses flickering wildly. Leora's voice came through the calm but urgent. Arik, the central reactor's output is unstable. If you don't stabilize it, the whole lab could collapse. Arik ducked under a falling panel and moved toward the reactor. The heat and light from the alien energy were intense, almost unbearable. He could see Leora on the monitors guiding his every move. Suddenly, a massive pulse from the alien equipment knocked him back. His shoulder hit the wall, pain shooting through his arm. He gritted his teeth but pressed on, his focus on the lab and most importantly on Leora. "Almost there," she called, her voice steady despite. "D?" Lieutenant Arik Valen stood at the observation deck of the Titan station, staring at the vast expanse of stars beyond the reinforced glass. The station, a massive hub orbiting the distant star Aurelian, hummed with activity, but Arik felt a restless calm inside him. Years of military training had taught him discipline, patience, and restraint, yet nothing had prepared him for the tension he now felt, an unease that came from something he could not name. A soft chime echoed through the deck, signaling the arrival of a new officer. Arik turned and saw Dr. Leora Celine stepping out of the lift. Her presence was immediate, bright, focused, and unyielding. She carried a small tablet and a bag of instruments, her eyes scanning the room even as she walked. Arik felt his chest tighten. There was something about her that drew him in, though he knew all too well the command forbade personal relationships between officers and scientists. "Lieutenant Valen," she said, voice calm but firm. "I am Dr. Celine. I've been assigned to the Aurelian project. I assume you'll be my point of contact during this mission." "Dr. Celine," Arik replied, bowing his head slightly. "It is an honor. I've read your reports. Your work on the xenosignal arrays is impressive." He fought to keep his tone professional. "I'll ensure you have full support from my team." She nodded, acknowledging his words without a flicker of emotion. Arik admired her poise, but beneath it, he sensed curiosity, perhaps even a spark of interest. He shook his head. Focus. This was a mission, not a moment for distraction. The Aurelian project was top secret. The station had picked up a mysterious signal from a nearby star system, one that appeared to be structured, intelligent. No one knew its source or purpose, but the command wanted answers. Arik's role was to ensure the safety of the team, while Leora's was to analyze the signal and lead research. Together, they formed a delicate balance of responsibility and intellect. Over the next few days, Arik observed Leora closely. She worked tirelessly in the labs, her fingers moving quickly over instruments, eyes scanning data streams. She was precise, careful, yet unafraid to question results. Arik respected her mind and, despite himself, found her presence comforting. In the quiet moments of the station, he would catch himself watching her from across the lab, noting the way she tilted her head when concentrating or the way she tapped her tablet lightly as she thought. One evening, the station's alarms blared. A minor system malfunction had caused a containment unit to overheat in the research lab. Scientists scrambled to secure delicate equipment. Arik, trained for emergencies, rushed toward the lab. "Dr. Celine!"
"Step back!"
he shouted as a small spark flew from the machinery. Leora froze, but her instincts were fast. She attempted to stabilize the console, but a burst of energy flared, forcing her back. Arik reached her just in time, pulling her away from the danger. Sparks flew around them, illuminating their tense faces. "You're safe," he said, voice low but firm. His hands lingered slightly on her arms, a touch that was meant to reassure but carried more weight than he intended. "I thank you, Lieutenant," she said, catching her breath. Her eyes met his for a long moment. There was gratitude there, yes, but also a flicker of something unspoken, a tension neither could deny. As the emergency was resolved, Arik walked her back to the observation deck. The stars stretched infinitely before them, calm and distant compared to the storm of emotions he felt. "You could have been seriously hurt," he said quietly. "I know," Leora replied, her voice steady. Yet Arik noticed the subtle tremor in her hands. "But I had to try. The data, it's critical. We can't afford delays." Her dedication amazed him. Here was a woman willing to risk herself for knowledge, for progress, for humanity. Arik felt a strange pride. Pride in being near someone so remarkable, someone whose courage rivaled his own. Days passed, and the team prepared for the mission to the source of the signal. Arik and Leora were paired constantly, forced to work in close quarters. Every assignment, every calculation, every data review brought them together. The command's rule echoed in Aric's mind. No fraternization. Yet every glance, every brief touch of hands over a console, chipped away at the wall of restraint he had built. One night, while reviewing the coordinates for the signal, Leora leaned over the table beside him. Their shoulders brushed. Arik felt a spark of warmth run through him, a sensation both thrilling and terrifying. He pulled back slightly, reminding himself of his duty. "Lieutenant," she said softly, "you always seem so calm. How do you manage it?" "Experience," he replied, trying to mask the way his heart raced. "Training helps, but it's not always easy." She smiled faintly, a small curve of lips that made his chest tighten. "I suppose I understand that. Some things are beyond calculation. Some things require trust." He nodded slowly. Yes, trust. Between them there was already an unspoken understanding. They were partners in every sense of the word, relying on each other in ways the command could not predict. And yet every step closer was a step into forbidden territory. Later, Arik found himself alone on the observation deck. He stared at the stars, thinking of Leora, of her courage, her intelligence, the way she made the impossible seem possible. He clenched his fists. This was more than duty. It was more than admiration. It was something he could not name, and something he was not allowed to act upon. The command's orders were clear. Fraternization was forbidden. Relationships between officers and scientists endangered missions, and any violation could lead to dismissal or worse. And yet, Arik knew one truth. He could not ignore the bond forming between him and Leora. The hum of the station seemed to echo his thoughts. Somewhere out there, the alien signal waited, mysterious and unyielding, and somewhere in the quiet, he realized that the greatest challenge might not be the stars or the unknown, but the desire growing in his own heart. As he turned to leave, Arik paused. He knew the path ahead would test his discipline, his courage, and his very sense of self. But one thing was certain. He would protect Leora at all costs, even if it meant risking everything for a single moment of connection. And in that quiet, starlit room a promise formed, not in words, not in vows, but in silent determination. No command could dictate the heart. The exploration ship Vanguard hung silently against the black canvas of space. Its hull reflected distant starlight, small and fragile against the immensity of the cosmos. Inside, the hum of engines and soft beep of instruments filled the quiet corridors. Lieutenant Arik Valen moved down the narrow walkway, his boots echoing lightly on the metal floor. He paused at the lab, where Dr. Leora Selene was already examining the incoming signals. "Lieutenant," Leora said without looking up, "we need to recalibrate the sensors. The signal is fluctuating, and if we don't stabilize it, our readings will be useless." Arik stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. "Understood. I'll assist. What do you need me to do?" She pointed at the control panel. "Monitor the output. Ensure the reactor stays stable. These readings could be dangerous if the system overloads." As they worked side by side, their movements synchronized almost instinctively. Arik noticed the way Leora's fingers danced across the holographic controls, precise and confident. He admired her skill and focus, yet the nearness of her presence made his heart race. Every brush of her sleeve against his arm, every shared glance carried weight he could not ignore. Hours passed like minutes as they adjusted the sensors. Outside, stars streamed past the viewport, the Vanguard gliding toward the source of the alien signal. The command's rules hovered over them like an invisible barrier, yet the shared intensity of the mission created a bond stronger than any regulation. Suddenly, the ship shuddered. Red warning lights flashed and a siren wailed. Arik and Leora jumped to the nearest consoles. "Power fluctuation in the aft reactor," Arik shouted. "If we don't stabilize it, the entire ship could be in danger." "I see it," Leora replied, her voice steady despite the panic. "We need to redirect energy flow to the primary systems. I'll handle the calculations. You execute the adjustments." Working together, they moved with urgency. Arik's hands flew over switches and dials, rerouting power to critical systems, while Leora calculated the safest sequence. Sparks flew from a malfunctioning panel, but neither hesitated. "Almost there," Leora called, sweat beading on her forehead. Arik adjusted the final circuit and the hum of the ship steadied. The lights returned to their normal glow and the siren ceased. They exhaled heavily, relief washing over them. "You did well," Arik said, voice low, almost a whisper. His eyes met hers, and for a moment the world outside the lab disappeared. "You too," Leora replied, meeting his gaze. There was a flicker of something unspoken between them, a tension neither could name but both could feel. After the crisis, the crew retired to their quarters. Arik found himself in the small shared lounge, trying to calm his thoughts. The mission demanded focus, yet he could not stop thinking about Leora, her courage, her intelligence, and the warmth that lingered in her presence. Leora entered quietly, carrying a tablet. "I need to review the latest readings," she said, though her eyes softened as she saw him. "Do you mind if I sit?" "Not at all," Arik replied, gesturing to the empty seat. She joined him, and for a while they worked in silence. The only sounds were the soft hum of the ship and the tapping of their fingers on the holographic controls. Occasionally their shoulders brushed, each touch